Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here and choosing amongst all the interesting workshops that are going on to choose for this topic, which is indeed a very important one, we think. So we will be talking here about upskilling SMEs for a data-driven future. As you know, the Commission has been active in shaping the digital future for Europe since a number of years. We understand, of course, that this cannot happen without the SMEs and that they will need additional support. So we try to provide this support by bringing the digital technologies to them. If I can quote or list a few of the most recent initiatives of the Commission, I would mention the Data Strategy, of course, and the Data Act, and then the recent Digital Decade Policy Program, which I think is very important because its aim is especially to provide the basic level of digital skills to 90% of SMEs. A key vehicle in this program are the European Digital Innovation Hubs. As our Commissioner, Mr. Breton, said this morning, there are important amounts of budget that are currently invested in this digital skilling, like the RRFs. 20% of those funds are reserved to the digitalization of companies. 17% are about upskilling companies, SMEs in particular. And then, of course, the European Year of Skills is giving the extra momentum to all these activities and to our topic that we are discussing here today. Now, those who attended the Schumpeter lecture yesterday understood or learned that predictability is not the holy grail, but still I keep in the back of my head something that I've been hearing for a long time, which is information is power. L'information, c'est le pouvoir. And for companies, for small SMEs especially, this knowledge, these data are so important, more even than for larger companies, because they provide these SMEs with powerful assets to gain insights in how they should interact with their customers, how the market is going, what is happening to their cash flows. It can make their business processes more efficient and give better allocations to their resources. Now, I'm not going to tell you, I'm going to stop talking and give the floor to our panelists who know a lot more about this than me. In our panel, I will ask them to introduce themselves properly, but we have Maria Terzi here, who is a service provider. She is a CEO from a startup who provides services in the area that we are here discussing. We have Stefan Moritz, who has been leading a very important project funded by the European Commission on data skills for SMEs, and he will tell us all about it. Then we have Yacine Soler, who is coming from the Catalan SME organization PIMEC, and who will enlighten us on what they carry out, for instance, in the Digital Kit program. And then we have the research angle that is provided to us by Lucia Cuzmanu, who is head of division in the OECD. So please, panelists, take your turn. Lucia, if I can invite you to start, present yourself, and then please tell us what your experience is. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and the opportunity is in fact to share some insights from the work that we are doing at the OECD with the Committee on SMEs and Entrepreneurship, where I'm leading the team that support countries and policymakers and stakeholders we say, prepare SMEs for a future that is very much characterized, we heard also this morning, by volatility, uncertainty, very rapid changes. It's an agenda that is very comprehensive, that looks at the many areas of policies that impact on SMEs and entrepreneurs, but where clearly the question of digitalization, of the data economy have emerged as critical ones, as central ones over the past years, with a strong acceleration due to the pandemic, when many small businesses were somehow forced to enter the data economy, and often, especially in the case of micro businesses, with very little skills, very little preparedness in terms of access to, protection of data, use of data, internal data generated internally, as well as seizing opportunities that may arise when external data, such as through open data initiatives, become available. When I read the title of the session, the first question that came to my mind was related to the word future, a future data economy. And in fact, what we see in our work and in the policy dialogue with policymakers and stakeholders is that the future is already here. We could even see its past, because the more we speak, and just now, more applications, developments, we also what has happened with AI, where the acceleration has been dramatic, spectacular over the past year. And we see that also already in the data. We conducted a study over the past years on scalers in European countries, which firms are able to grow, to turn opportunities into business value, including data. And it's very clear that scalers are characterized by certain type of investments before they actually grow, before they experience the growth spur. And typically this is investment in IT employees and investment in digital technologies. Increased use of digital technologies, this is a common characteristic across European countries, which is not a surprise, but I think it's important also to draw the link between the actual uptake of digital technologies and data, because it's through digital technologies, through applications, that data is generated. So it's somehow hard to talk about data without looking at the capacity of SMEs to uptake digital technologies. And here is where we see that challenges, in fact, reflect very much the typical challenges SMEs have in accessing and using digital technologies. But let me also mention the fact that what we have observed in our policy analysis is that this increased importance of data governance by SMEs is well recognized, and we see an increasing number of policy initiatives that focus on providing tools, on providing information. The market is exploding somehow with new applications, offer. So on the side of the offer, we see a lot that has emerged over the past years. And yet, when we look at the degree at which this has penetrated in different parts of the SME population, it's not, the demand is not keeping up with the offer. So there are still structural weaknesses on the side of the demand of SMEs, lack of understanding of how to actually use data to generate value, how data can serve the business purpose and the business strategy. So lack of awareness, lack of capabilities, in some cases lack of the financial resources that are needed to undertake the transformation that they would need, as well as, for example, engaging more substantially in training, lack of trust. I mentioned the accelerated digitalization through COVID. Many enterprises enter a space with which they were little familiar, and with little investment, for example, in cybersecurity. And so we saw how cyber threats have increased, and they've increased relatively more, at least in terms of cyber attacks, for SMEs, given also the very large number of those that enter the data economy somehow unprepared in terms of tools and in terms of skills. So skills is clearly a major obstacle in this regard. What type of skills are we talking about? It's clearly basic digital skills. In some cases, we are talking to start with, even with as simple as computer literacy, or the capacity to do payments online, the capacity to understand, as I mentioned, the questions related, for example, to digital security. It's certainly technical skills. Using data means often data analytics, coding, programming, skills related to the use of data for marketing, market analysis, segmenting the market, doing targeted advertisement, etc. And there are also the skills related to the use of data for improving the internal processes of the small businesses, so enterprise resource planning and similar type of applications. But this is probably not enough. And this is something we have been finding now as a common issue across countries, is that technical skills are viewed as important, but not enough to make the transition. There is an increasing demand of skill bundles where technical competencies are combined with more transversal skills, flexibility, critical thinking, the capacity to adapt, the capacity to respond to a very uncertain environment, to take initiative, autonomous type of work. So in a way, the capacity to adapt to a rapidly changing environment, where therefore also the demand for the technical skills may evolve very rapidly. There is some recent survey conducted by the World Enterprise Forum, and CEOs across a number of enterprises were asked which skills they see the demand will increase most over the next 5 years. And the response was not AI skills, the response was critical thinking and critical analysis. So having employees, entrepreneurs that are able to adapt. So where the technical skills are important, but again, they are not enough. And how do SMEs compare with regard to these skills needs? This as well is a type of analysis that we conduct at the OECD, looking at the skills gap. What we see is that the rapid evolution of skill needs, of skill demands, in the sense, for example, of skill bundles, have amplified the traditional challenges that SMEs encounter in finding skills and talent due to lack of resources, due to a less attractive proposal to some talented and skilled workers in terms of wages, career opportunities, opportunities for training. And it has amplified this because we've been living over the past years in an environment of a tight labor market, where shortages are also a limiting factor for large enterprises. So where there is increased competition for certain type of skills, certain type of talent, including, as I mentioned, these transversal capacities to adapt. So with the increased competition coming also from large enterprises, the typical challenges SMEs meet, they have been amplified. And what is the policy response that we have observed? There we have mapped policy responses across all European countries, more than 400, 500 initiatives, and we have tried to look at what initiatives are taken by whom, targeting what type of enterprises when it comes to data and to the data economy. And an interesting finding is that, yes, the initiatives have grown over the past years, but very rarely we find initiatives related to data, access and use of data, that are also targeted specifically to SMEs. These are typically generic type of policies, so more at the systemic level, but where there isn't necessarily a consideration of the specificities of SMEs. So, as I'm conscious also of time, but happy also to address some questions. What type of conclusions we have drawn from this type of policy analysis? First, the need to mainstream SME considerations in data policy making. Data policy making is often taking place outside of SME agencies or the ministries in charge of SMEs and entrepreneurship. Nonetheless, it's very important that governance coordination mechanisms are put in place so that the SME considerations are taken into account when data strategies, cybersecurity strategies, etc., are put in place. Second, the need to combine supply-side policies, the offer of training, the offer of applications of new tools, with demand-side actions, raising awareness, accompanying small businesses in understanding why they need this type of tools. So the aspect of demand as a central one. Placing attention also on the opportunities that exist for SMEs in accessing external data. What we have seen in our policy mapping is that most of the initiatives are aimed at improving the capacity of SMEs to use the data that they actually generate in their operation, which is, of course, very important, whereas there is much less that has been done up to now in terms of accessing open data or a data infrastructure that is easy to use by small businesses. And finally, an ecosystem approach. I've been mentioning the activities by governments, by policymakers, but a lot is coming from the private sector, from the business association, from the chambers of commerce. There is a lot of space still, a lot of opportunities to be tapped in by coordinating, by collaborating with the private sector. The government can take the challenge, the historical challenge of driving SMEs into the data economy only if it's done with an ecosystem perspective. SMEs do not always need to develop themselves the capacities, the skills. They can tap into the external pool of knowledge services in the labor market, advisory services. And to do that, it's fundamental that the actions are also aimed at strengthening this ecosystem that is typically an ecosystem at the local level, at the regional level, for providing targeted services to SMEs.
Thank you very much. That's been very interesting. I mean, we recognize a lot of what you're saying, but to hear it, being said is always, a good confirmation. Please,
yes.
Yasin.
Yes, thank you. I would like to thank the European Commission and the other host of this SME Assembly for inviting us. I represent today PMEC and PMEP. We are both SME employers organizations in Catalonia and Balearic Islands with over 150,000 member enterprises. And we are both members of SME United since the early beginning when it was still called UABME. Unfortunately, our president was supposed to be here, Antonio Cañete, and he got sick over the weekend. So I will try to do my best in this regard. On these panel topics, it goes without saying that data have become one of the key and essential competitive factors in Europe. Fair and affordable access to data is essential for SMEs. We think, for example, of car dealer or a household appliance repairer. But in general, data management and data protection is essential for SMEs in all sectors. SMEs need to learn how to manage, protect, and make use of the data related to their clients, consumers, and markets in an efficient way. So I will just briefly describe the current status of digitalization at Spanish SMEs. Then I will say a few words about what we are doing in our organizations on behalf of digitalizing SMEs. And then I will give a few policy recommendations. And some of them are also related to what Lucia just said. Now, on the current status of our members in the domain of digitalization, I think we should first of all remind everyone, ourselves, that it's true that 98% of enterprises in Europe are SMEs, according to the European definition, but 90% of them are micro-enterprises. That means they have fewer than 10 employees, and that means they are very limited in human and financial resources. These micro-enterprises, they also represent the vast majority of our members, also about 80%, probably, more or less. And as we can see in the most recent data, there is still a long way to go in digitalization in Spain for companies in general, but in particular for small companies and micro enterprises. There is an annual survey done by the Spanish Statistical Office, which is published and is really interesting. It's done every year, taking about more than 15,000 responses. And in that last survey, it was said that 99% of Spanish enterprises in general, on average, had access to internet, and 78 of them already had websites in place. However, when we move down to more sophisticated tools, only 28% of all Spanish enterprises are using or having online sales platforms. 29% of them have CRM tools in place, and just 9% are using mobile apps for the clients, for selling to their clients. However, when we discriminate by size and we look at the shares in each particular type of enterprise, we see that, for example, only 13% of micro enterprises have online sales platforms. And then, which is more worrying, only 31% of micro enterprises have websites in place versus 78% as average. So you see that these shares are more than halved for micro enterprises in Spain. Through our own regular surveys to members, which, as I said, are mostly micro and small enterprises, we can add some additional figures, in particular related to data management. It's true that in Spain, a big concern in recent years has been cybersecurity, but particularly because of some renowned and notorious cyber attacks on entities like Barcelona Clinic Hospital and UAB University that compromised thousands of data. And in this regard, our surveys have shown that 85% of our members claim to be worried about cybersecurity, but only 40%, less than half of them, are taking measures in this regard. Less than half of taking measures in cybersecurity. So the main conclusion would be that for any future measures or actions at all levels, from regional to European level, we should definitely place the emphasis on micro enterprises, because they're really needed of further digitalization efforts. In this regard, to move to our actions, I must say that our organizations have been very active in the so-called Digital Kit program under the Next Generation EU funding. For those that are not familiar, the Digital Kit program has been supporting for almost 2 years SMEs in providing them with service vouchers, subsidized service vouchers to digitalize. The aim was to reach 1 million SMEs in Spain with approximately 5 billion euros in budget. And it's true that we think that this target will be very difficult to reach by 2026. This is why we have been proposing through SME United that the Next Generation EU program is extended beyond 2026. Because at this moment we have, the Digital Kit program in Spain has benefited 200,000 enterprises, 200,000 SMEs, which is not bad, but still we are far away from this 1 million that we need to reach in just 2 years. And what is more important for us, also as SME organization, is that in this program we have about 11,000 IT professionals and companies that are working as service providers. I mean, it's a system that is based on public support, but it's basically using SMEs as beneficiaries and SMEs as service providers. So we believe that it's a very interesting example of a private-public partnership, as Lucia said. So in our particular case, what PIMEC and PIMEP have been doing is we have supported in the past 2 years almost 3,000 SMEs. And I can tell you that the most demanded services or programs specific support tools have been, first of all, web design, web publication. Web design is the most demanded one. Then e-commerce, digital marketing, by this order, ERP and CRM, and last but not least, cybersecurity and data management. So as you can see, cybersecurity and data management are still low in the list, on the list of priorities for micro enterprises. As we can see, based on the figures that I just gave you at the beginning, we start from a very low level of digitalization at SMEs. For example, only 31% of them in Spain had web pages. So it makes sense that they start by publishing a web page before going into more sophisticated services. I can tell you that there is still an ongoing debate in Spain on the impact of the digital kit. There are many experts that say that it has not really produced a radical or disruptive transformation in terms of digitalization. And it has just been what we call a thin rain of standardized IT services to thousands of enterprises that they could have obtained from the market in any way. So actually, I have had the opportunity to visiting some of the beneficiaries, some of our members benefiting from this digital kit. And I can say then that, for example, installing a QR code for clients, or setting up a client database, or a WhatsApp messaging system for clients in a small shop with just 2 workers can be as revolutionary and disruptive as applying artificial intelligence, for example, to a large factory. So we think that the program has worked, and as I said, we are proposing an extension of the program beyond 2026 because we are not going to reach the target. So in terms of organization and skills, our advice has always been to involve the SME owners and managers at the highest level. Without their commitment, it will be very difficult to digitalize the company, starting with making an appropriate website, up to any other service, any other product that they want to implement. And then we also advise companies to digitalize gradually, with short, mid, and medium-term and long-term targets, and starting with easiest steps like web publishing, as I said, or digitalizing existing processes. Then we also ask these IT professionals, more than 11,000 IT professionals, to be flexible and patient. They need to adapt their products to SMEs because workers and owners have very limited time and, of course, money. For example, we keep on asking these professionals to think that Excel cannot always be discarded because it's the king database in many micro enterprises, so they should think of combining this with other tools. And then in terms of skills, just to conclude, we are making some proposals to the Spanish government, for example, to provide more generous rebates, discounts on social security contributions, if workers are trained in digital tools at SMEs, with what we call a regressive scale. The smaller the company, the larger the discount if they train workers and owners of the companies in digital tools. So I'm running out of time. So just to conclude with some policy ideas, when we prepared this presentation, we're going through so many documents from the European Commission. The moderator had just mentioned the DATAC, Digital Decade Program, but we also have Digital Education Action Plan, Council recommendations on digital education, on digital skills, etc. So we think that we really need to have a very strong roadmap, not so many words, more enforcement, more implementation, which is, we think, the roadmap. We think, as Lucia said, we need to adapt these European tools for SMEs. For example, the European Commission is working on European digital skills certificates. They should maybe come up first with European digital skills certificates for SMEs. And then we think that other interesting avenues are, for example, that the EU should lead the creation of data areas. Last week we had an agreement between Japan and the EU on the data flow. I think that's interesting. It's an interesting topic because data will be critical for the internationalization of European SMEs. So to conclude, data will be critical for the future of the EU, but we also think that, of course, SMEs are critical for our future as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was very interesting, I think. I particularly liked the policy recommendations at the end. Please, let's move on to Stefan and see, you carried out a new project, so let's hear how we are doing at the European level.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I also thank the European Commission and especially DG GROW for the invitation to this panel. As Secretary General of the European Confederation of SME Associations, European Entrepreneurs CAPME, we have had the chance to work on these two topics that we are talking about, which are, one is digitization and the other one is skill upgrading or reskilling in the field of data management. And we have run two projects on both topics. One was a pilot project asked by the European Parliament to the European Commission to be implemented in 2018 for support to SMEs in digitalization, which is more or less, let's say, the blueprint for the program that you are running here in Spain with the Next Generation funds. And this project was called by us Digitalize SME. And it was a cascade funding scheme. That means we got funds from the European Commission, from Horizon 2020 at that time, to hand over, let's say, service vouchers to SMEs in order to receive support for digitalization. And what did we do in this project? We tried to understand how can we best help the companies, and we made a small survey among our members. And the very first point we found out is that a company does not decide to use a technology because of the technology, because it's fancy to have this technology, because it's a new technology or something. They use it because it helps to reduce costs, work faster, produce more, get more clients, sell better, and so on and so forth, because it's an added value. So we recommended to the digital enablers that we had selected, 200 all over Europe, to first of all speak with the company. What is their business model? How do they earn their money? And how could they maybe then, with a small or bigger introduction of a digital technology, increase their turnover or reduce their costs and or work faster or produce better quality or whatever. And that worked out to be really very helpful to the companies, because often it was some practical time organization tool, for example, for teams. Yeah. Other times it was a more far-looking automation of procedures, processes, and so on. But that approach, that the business model in the middle and then the technology chosen on the basis of, was the best approach for supporting the companies. So the only thing is we have told them that websites are not allowed, because you can have a website on the market really for few money, and but as long as the website helped to automatize processes, so for example mailing or reservation tools for hotels and so on, then of course it was legitimate, because then it is a connected, let's say, tool. That was one thing. The other, of course, then in the plan that the digital enabler elaborated together with the company, with the commitment of the leadership, of course, of the owners, they also indicated the training needs for the teams to use that. And there we came to the other project that we ran then after this project, after Digitalize SME, which you can still find under digitalize-sme.eu. We ran the project Data Skills for SME, so Erasmus Plus project in that field, in that case. And when we're talking about skills, we always start from the, let's say, sometimes very intelligent thoughts of Confucius, which says that what I hear, I forget. What I see, I remember. And what I do, I understand. And that is very important. We try to involve as much as possible companies in doing using digital technologies. And that not through a formal course with a formal, let's say, application mechanism, with a certification mechanism, with tests, but focusing mainly on a self-regulated learning platform where the companies can decide when they want to do it, where they want to do it, and how they want to do it, with short, let's say, teaching skills or training skills, pills, sorry, in the sense of video tutorials or presentations, short displays of infographics and so on, which guide the people into the technology, especially for the practical use. Before we did that, this project, of course, we did also a survey in this case, and we wanted to find out which were the main areas where this training is needed. And we found out that, of course, let's say also here the business model was important and the business in general was important. So the first point was online sales and the data management behind it that you have with payments and stocks and deliveries and so on. And invoices, e-invoicing, by the way, also connected to that. And then the second point was customer relationship management in order to stay better connected with your customers and follow up after sales and so on to stay, to build up on this, let's say, very important asset. Then the third point, and absolutely not least point, was cybersecurity, data security, especially because it's a very important question of trust. Many people don't, or many entrepreneurs don't use digital technologies because they don't trust the movement of data behind the screens, and Maria will tell us a lot more about that. But that is also, let's say, for me, leads me to later to a policy recommendation, let's say. Fourth area was also very important, paperless office. So all the dematerialization of all processes in the office, from cloud computing to e-signature, e-invoicing to whatever kind of operations you can digitize. That was very, very important also because the companies practically want to solve small things, first of all, fix here and fix there, and then incrementally go further. So the transformation from a analogical business model to a digital business model is, of course, then another far more reaching objective. And this most probably requires a totally different strategy on political levels. First of all, I don't think as Confederation we don't agree with, let's say, the big claim of the European Union for the program for the current structural funds and strategies, which calls for a green and digital transition. So green, of course, we know why, and that's of course a very important societal target and an aim, but digital itself is not an aim, it's a tool. And the tool will be used as long as we have an advantage from it. And that is why we mainly focus on competitiveness, which is much more important for us, because when we get competitive better, we earn more money and we can pay more taxes and also finance European programs. The other point would be to achieve, let's say, competitiveness in the digital market, we need another approach to data management, but not on the level of small and medium-sized enterprises. We need another approach to data management on the big systems. So, for example, for AI, for artificial intelligence, you need large language models, and these large language models require a very big calculation power. And this calculation power, practically in Europe, nobody has. We have some supercomputers which are totally overbooked for the next 5 years by European universities, but no access for small and medium-sized enterprises. And we would need a boost in bringing the calculation power to Europe in order also to develop our own large language models, and with that artificial intelligence. And that would be the basis for competitiveness in the digital field in Europe. And then, of course, we don't think that this can be only done by the big companies. That must be done also by small and medium-sized enterprises, also because they are creative and innovative, because they base their innovation not on disruptive innovation, but on incremental innovation, which is based on experience. on the relationship with your clients, on the how markets work. They know how things work, and they also know how the tools work that they need to do their work. So in this sense, I think if we want to really become competitive in the digital field, there is another basics that we have to first provide for. But very important is also, and there's another recommendation, cybersecurity. The protection of data that would be connected with that. If we would have the supercomputers, the big servers here in Europe and not in America, for example. I mean, European Commission, for example, decided to use Teams instead of Zoom, because Zoom is owned by Facebook and Teams is owned by Microsoft. Both are in America. So I don't know what is the big advantage from one and the other. But if we would have it in Europe, I mean, we have clouds, of course, also European clouds, but they should be much more powerful. And data security is a very important issue, because that creates trust. And in this moment, in this very moment, also after the brutal invasion of Ukraine by Russia, and in a world of growing uncertainty, like it is said a little bit softly, we think that data protection is becoming more and more important, and would create the possibility also to disseminate more the use of digital tools on broader level. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this contribution. Yes, so I noted a bigger need for access to data for all companies, but for SMEs in particular, and then EU-wide data spaces with a special focus on cybersecurity. So please, Maria, you are the specialist on this. So before we then conclude and look for questions from the audience here and online, please give us your ideas on the topic.
Thank you, Krista, and thank you for having me here today. I'm Maria Terzi. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Malloc. Malloc is a privacy and data security startup, and we created it to help people safeguard their data, protect from spyware, and stay safe and private online while using their mobile devices. Although our first mobile app was developed for individuals, we soon realized that data protection is also important for enterprises. And we're currently working towards two new products, an enterprise version for mobile apps for securing the mobile devices of employees, and a library, an SDK that other mobile app owners can use to protect their data from hacking attempts. The value of data has increased tremendously over the last few years. The Economist stated that the most valuable resource is no longer oil, but data. And this shift comes as to no surprise. 97% of businesses use data to power their business opportunities, and for 76% of businesses, data serves as an integral part of forming a business strategy. It is no coincidence that some of the most successful and powerful companies in the world are continuously collecting incredible amounts of data. Understanding and utilizing data is equally important and can help SMEs thrive in a very competitive environment. Data can provide insights into customer behavior, market trends, help them achieve operational efficiency. SMEs can use data insights to customize their product, enhance customer satisfaction, and streamline their internal processes. And we also now have artificial intelligence we can reuse to reach new levels of personalization, customization, speed, and power. Artificial intelligence, of course, also requires data for training and validating the models, and will never have existed without them. So, two main questions are raised. The first one is, where is the line between collecting data for improving our products and services, and at the same time preserving the privacy of the individuals? Finding the right balance between using data to enhance our products and respective individuals' privacy is not easy. On the one hand, we want to collect as much data as possible and use them for all the opportunities they provide. And on the other hand, it's important to ensure that this data collection and usage respects privacy rights, complies with regulations, and it doesn't compromise the personal information of the individuals. With data comes power, but it's also a very huge responsibility. So the second question is, how do we protect our data from the various malicious actors and the cybersecurity threats? So what are the tools today that we have as SMEs to address these questions? Every SME must have a robust data management plan. This includes classifying data based on sensitivity, implementing access controls, regular data backups, and encryption measures for enhanced security. Using strong encryption methods to protect data during any transmission or storage. Training our employees on cybersecurity and data security best practices, and developing comprehensive incident response plans. Also, conducting regular security audits ensures the identification and resolution of vulnerabilities, while compliance with relevant data protection regulations, such as the GDPR, is very essential. There are also various certifications that can help SMEs. For example, the ISO 27001 includes the implementation of an information security management system, while Cyber Essentials provide assurance of basic cybersecurity principles. Certifications like the SOC 2, the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification, the Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, further validate the organization's commitment to securing data and ensuring privacy. And these certifications provide a standardized framework and an external validation that an organization follows best practices in data management. However, the effectiveness of those practices ultimately depends on the consistent implementation and the integration into the company's culture. Also, the administrative costs for applying such tools and getting those certifications are very high, particularly for small and medium enterprises. And these tools and regulations are in the right direction. However, the future of handling data is all about building privacy right into the core of how we create things. Privacy by design means considering privacy from the very beginning when we develop new technologies or systems. Instead of treating privacy and data security as an afterthought, we need to make it a fundamental part of the whole process. Yep. Privacy by design includes principles such as data minimization, using as little data as needed, using purpose limitation and user transparency, being clear with users about what is happening with their information, and giving users control over their data. Privacy-preserving technologies such as differential privacy, multi-party computation, and homomorphic encryption are part of this shift, as they naturally focus on protecting user privacy. And allow me to be technical for a moment to briefly explain these technologies. I know that this is not a technical audience, but I will explain them briefly. So we have differential privacy, which allows us to add noise into our data in order to protect the privacy of individuals and produce statistical insights without exposing the specific details. Multi-party computation allows two parties to compute without sharing their data with each other. Federated learning enables systems to collaboratively learn on a shared prediction model while keeping all the training data on the device. And homomorphic encryption allows us to train machine learning models on encrypted data. At Malloc, we also utilize data to improve our services, and we use federated learning to improve the detection of spyware on mobile devices and abnormal data transmissions without sharing the data of our users into the cloud. Compared to any other conventional machine learning companies that collect all your data on a server in order to train a machine learning model, we do it locally. We train the model on your device, and we share with our cloud and the global model only the newly learned, produced knowledge, only the weights of the model. And in this way, we learn, we improve our models, but we respect users' privacy. Privacy by design and privacy-preserving technologies allow us to leverage data for insights and innovate without compromising the confidentiality of individual information. The commitment to privacy preservation and data protection not only ensures compliance with regulations, but also offers a competitive advantage to companies. By prioritizing user privacy, organizations show commitment to the ethical practices, foster stronger relationships with their customers, they build trust, and enhance their reputation in an increasingly privacy-conscious world. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Maya. That was very interesting, rather technical, I would think. And to be honest, I hope that this security and this privacy, that my privacy is also protected. Yeah, because every day we give so much away from our privacy without really thinking about it. But I can imagine that for SMEs, so what is clear is that there is not one size fits all solution to these issues or to these topics, and that I can imagine that for micro companies it is even smaller, so they have to be trained really hands-on interest of items that are of immediate interest to them, of immediate usability, where they see the added value. Yeah, but a very interesting conversation, I think, we've been having here. So I don't know, are there any questions from the participants here in the room for any of the panel members? I see a hand raised there.
Hello, thank you so very much. So my name is Chaya Mathur, and I do business between India and EU. And one of the things that I realize is, I was just in India, people are very digitally savvy on a very small little level. So for example, my taxi driver in India says he was using a very simple device and Google Maps. And I said, oh, you're from a small town and you don't know the route. And he says, I know the route, but Google knows the traffic. And I love that. So one of the things that I realized since yesterday, so many policies, so many possibilities, so many places where SMEs like me can get the data, but we have no Google where we can find out all that you're talking about. We don't know how to train ourselves on the new things. Well, Google is one, and then there's Waze, and then perhaps something else. How do SMEs find out where that data accumulation or that training is possible?
Yes, indeed. I think that's a very valid question. I don't know if anyone wants to contribute, but yes, indeed, there are so many possibilities, and yeah, new systems are developed every day. Like, I have 2 teenagers in the house, so when I say you're not answering your message, then they say, yeah, messages is for old people, you know, why do you send me a message? So, so yes, I mean, does anyone want to share their views on in response to the question?
I mean, I think also my colleague from PMEC is agreed with that. They should trust their business organizations. For example, our German member, they have a digital empowerment center called Mittelstand Digital in Germany, and they have already reached out to more than 50,000 companies in direct support in terms of training and information about what they can do and how they can use these tools. And then, of course, the companies, they already use themselves the available tools, and the main source for training and information about digital tools is still YouTube. So you find a lot of tutorials for everything. Yeah. I mean, how do you learn to use your mobile phone? You learn it by using it, and then.
How do we find which policy is, having a direct impact? So my question is,
the policy. Okay.
What are the new policies that you're doing? Not just the digital tools, but the policy on the digital tools.
Okay. Yeah, that is, of course, on the website of the European Commission. There is a lot. You get lost, of course.
You need a ways to find your way on our website. I am the first to admit.
Maybe Lucia can say something about policy.
On this, as I was mentioning earlier, the mapping that we did on the various policies, something that seems to be emerging as a promising area is data audit. where basically it's a matter of having a professional being accompanied in understanding, first of all, in your operations, when and how you generate data. What is the value of this data? Are you really using it, and for what purpose? You mentioned the case of the taxi driver, and inevitably came to my mind, I'm Italian, and the discussion by taxi drivers, or, you know, there was a few months ago, was about the problem of using digital payment because you pay more taxes. So there is a cost, and it's very evident. Why don't we talk also about the opportunities? You use digital payment, maybe out of it you get information that, you know, in your activities can help you. So I think there are policies that are very targeted and that can help, and where, again, it's very important to have a network of professionals, because for a policymaker it's very difficult to reach out in a cost-effective way to a very high number of small enterprises. So how to get this information fertilizing the environment that typically a small business access to. It's the professional, it's the engineer, it's the chamber of commerce, it's the association. Sometimes it's much more effective, the accountant, that gives the information through the daily interaction than a workshop organized somewhere in the capital to provide this information. All of those serve some function, but to say that it's often the environment. But my example of the Italian taxi driver was also to mention that there is also a question of culture. Having a data culture probably is not something that we get overnight. So how, for example, to overcome the suspicion that anything related to data is surveillance, is to tax you more, is to control you more. There is a part of it. We cannot deny that it's not used also by the public authorities to get compliance, etc. But turning a bit the narrative that out of the data that you produce, you could get much more value. How you turn data into business and who can help you get that, I think it's a crucial question.
Just say a couple of words. I don't dare saying which policies we need, but it's true that we definitely need new policies, new regulations, and new taxes, because we're going through a period of changes that will still take a few decades. And I just give you a very, very quick and very real example. During the pandemic, I remember that our retailers, traditional retailers that are members of PIMEC, they were complaining because their shops were closed. Everyone was buying from Amazon, and the people, what they did is that they threw the empty boxes on the streets. So the municipality of Barcelona was collecting this garbage based on a garbage tax that is paid by the traditional retailers whose shops were closed. They said, look, we're paying for the garbage tax for the people to collect the empty boxes from Amazon, and Amazon is not paying anything. So I definitely think that we need to think of new regulations, new rules, and probably new taxes for the next few decades.
Yes. Please, we have more questions.
Can you hear me? Yeah, sorry. Voško Starc-Pečeni with my colleague from Arctur. This is a high-tech company from Slovenia. We are involved in more data spaces projects. We all know that now we are running more data spaces projects around Europe. And we are talking about the data of tourism right now. So we are involved in tourism, cultural heritage, media. And I would like to arise a question, because during these projects actually are defined the rules, okay, for how the data will be spread, and also the rights that SMEs will have there. And what we notice now that, for example, the new projects coming out, the calls are covering only 50%, okay? So for SMEs to be part of these projects, it is becoming a problem. So it means that the rights for SMEs to be there, present, and find, to how the data will be, all these policies, the SMEs will be left out. What can we do here? Because, only the big players and other, stakeholders from the market will be involved in deployment and so on. And the SMEs in this way will be left out. So I would like to hear from you, what can we do here that really SMEs can be part of these projects, and how to co-finance, because this co-financing, maybe to explain that, is now somehow left to national governments, and some can, have budgets, other not, understanding, and this is becoming actually a kind of issue right now because the projects are taking place, the calls are out, but rights for SMEs not really taken in consideration. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'll pass on that message, but yeah, I mean, this is not really a question for...
No, I mean, from our point of view, let's say the cascade funding approach is very useful, I think, because it helps to spread funds, European funds all over Europe and reaches directly single companies with a very simple application procedure normally. So you have a cascade, a project that is financed by the European Union, for example, and then they say 60 or 70% of the funds must be handed over, let's say, to small and medium-sized companies, under normally in form of vouchers. Maybe you did not. I'm not answering your question, but there's another proposal that we have that we say for the next round of European structural funds from 2027 onwards, we would propose to make available a data fund, and that is not giving money, but giving calculation power, space on supercomputers to elaborate your own AI models. And you can maybe apply for it and run and obtain maybe the grant, let's say, to get this time granted, and with, of course, also technical introduction. This can be much more useful than handing over money. And it's also much more easier to be accounted at the end in terms of funding.
Thank you very much. That's a very interesting approach to a new kind of support. Let's say, I'm getting red lights here from the organization that we really should cut up. I don't know, is there any question from online that we still have to deal with? Okay, thank you very much. This is a very interesting topic, and I think we could discuss for a lot longer. So maybe over lunch or tonight, when you have the occasion to speak to any of our panelists here, please seize the opportunity. Thank you very much for being here. I think it's time more or less for the lunch. So, voilà, this is.